Hello, I'm Heather. Let's get a question from the internet today. Okay, this is how do I analyze cash flow and calculate return on investment ROI? Well, I get this question a lot. This is like one of the first questions I get a lot when I talk with new investors. And return on investment, what it basically means. So there's a few different synonyms for it. ROI, return on investment, cash on cash return, cash flow is another one. And what that means, the basic calculation is you take whatever your total cost to acquire is out of pocket, not the purchase price of the property unless you're paying cash. But if you're doing a loan, it'd be your down payment plus your closing costs. If you're paying cash, it would be the cost for the purchase for the property plus your closing costs. That total number. And then if you're doing capital improvements, sometimes you have to do a rehab on this property going in before you buy it. Sometimes you have a vague idea, but you don't know exactly what it's going to be until you close and you really get into the rehab. Sometimes it's like, you have to replace a water heater and you think it's going to be around $2,000. You could include that capital improvements number in your initial total for the property on this cash on cash return calculation, or you could put that on what's called the capital improvements, which capital improvements just kind of goes in a different bucket and is kind of analyzed through other ways. But anyway, you can decide how you want to do that. Different people do it different ways. Some people just want to say, I don't care what you call the buckets of the money. I want to know how much is my out-of-pocket dollars. And then what's my return on that on an annualized basis? So the way you figure that out, whatever that number is, you would divide that by the annual profit, your net profit collected on rent minus expenses, whatever that number is, divided by your investment. That would be your cash on cash return or your return on investment or your cash flow. That's it at the core. So a lot of people lead with that, and that's okay. It's not like a bad thing to lead with, but just focusing on that leaves a lot of things on the table. There's a lot under the iceberg here in this world of rental property investing that a lot of people just don't know what you don't know. How could you? But being a practitioner, being in the business as somebody that's worked with hundreds of rental property investors, and myself being a rental property investor, and my team being rental property investors, and me just living and breathing this stuff for the last 23 years, there's a lot of stuff that is revealed as you learn this business, the real value. So cash on cash and cash flow ROI is one of them. But essentially, you want to look at the other layers here. So when we run numbers on properties for clients, for our potential rental property investor buyers, when we're analyzing property for them, we look at 4 factors. Okay, we call it the 4 ways to make money in rental property investing. And one of them we're very conservative with, which I'll get to that one in a minute. But the first one is, yes, cash flow, cash on cash return. What is that first calculation number, which is never sexy? We're just looking to break even on that. A lot of times in our market, which is Dallas-Fort Worth, are certain buy box criteria that we use for a lot of our investors. It generally just yields a break even return because we're trying to just get into the business to create an active, properly structured business, which is what unlocks the real value of rental property investing, which is the third way to make money in rental property investing. But before we can talk about number 3, let's talk about number 2. Number 2 is tax strategy. Number 2, that is really the opportunity. When you can set up an active, properly structured business, that is what unlocks the door to the possibilities to reduce your taxable income, which is the real opportunity here. One of the main things why this business is so valuable and attractive to normal people like you and normal people like me, because your number one expense is your income tax. And this business helps you retract from that, not just with the direct expenses associated with your rental property, like property taxes and insurance and repairs and property management fees and expenses, but the indirect expenses is where the real value comes in, because you're a business owner. And when you're a business owner, you create jobs and you prime the pump of the American economy. You add to the GDP in a way that you were not doing as a W-2 consumer. And when you do that, when you unlock the properly structured, active business milestone, the secret code, the speakeasy secret knock that lets you in the door, that is where you find the real opportunity in this business. And so tax strategy is the second way to make money in rental property investing. So if you stop at ROI, you never even get to the big kahuna, the big bang, the big opportunity of this business opportunity. And it's rarely talked about. It's extremely misunderstood. It's a scary area for people because anything dealing with taxes and potential audits and the tax code, it scares people. But once you get educated, it's not so scary. Once you learn the opportunity, the truth, once you're guided toward the light, it's not so scary anymore, because knowledge is power, and then we take action on that knowledge. And that's honestly the real power. And that is number 2. But we're very conservative on our calculator. On our 10-year rental property evaluator calculator, we analyze rental property over a 10-year period, because most economic cycles are around there, 8 to 12 years roughly. And then we also need to see the property turnover. We estimate the property is going to turn over about 5 times in that 10 years. Could be a little more, could be a little less, but we want to analyze that, because every time the turnover happens, that's going to affect your returns, because you're going to have expenses. Always you're going to have some kind of vacancy, and always you're going to have releasing fees, and always you're going to have some kind of make-ready fees. So we want to try to reduce those, or at least be aware of them and work those into our numbers every time. And that's another reason why on our calculator, cash flow usually just breaks even. Not all calculators on the internet are that detailed. That's why we made this one, because we wanted it to be a lot more detailed. And that helped us prepare our clients a lot more, because a lot of this business is about this real estate and the 6 inches between your temples. The most valuable real estate. It's about getting the expectations set properly. That's what it is. Because this is a long business. It's not an overnight success. It's not get rich quick. It's going to take a minute. It's going to take some time to change your financial trajectory of your life, and do it in a sincere way. So the first 2 ways to make money in rental property investing: cash on cash return, cash flow. The second way, tax strategy. We're very conservative on that on our calculator. We try to be extra conservative because, again, it's all about setting expectations. There is so much more opportunity to increase your total return when you really add that in. Plus, there's another element to this within the tax strategy piece called cost segregation that can be applied, and that can also really up the ante on that as a above the line, which means you receive the money back in real time way that you can utilize. Okay, so the third, and the fourth ways to make money in rental property investing is your mortgage pay down. So if you have a mortgage, you're going to be, the tenant is going to be paying down the principal balance on that mortgage. Okay, most of that money initially is going to go to interest, which is a whole nother topic. But whatever, principal portion is going to go toward to pay your principal down. So the rent pays your principal down, which is going to create more of a gap from mortgage pay down and appreciation, which means, part of your net profit. But the fourth way is appreciation. So that leads us into that. That's just the property value increasing over the years. Our calculator, we use around 3%. We've always used 3% until COVID. After COVID, 2021, 2022, when we had that boom, we changed it to 4% appreciation on average per year. Even though we're in a flat market, if not declining market right now, we're still keeping it at 4% because we just know Dallas, as our market as a whole, is in a new era. We will be the third largest market in the United States by the year 2050. It's 2026 now, so in about 25 years, roughly. So that is projected. New York City, Los Angeles, Dallas, boom. So that is telling us, we will be at that 4%. We feel pretty good about that. We have to make estimates, but that is what we feel good about. So we've seen kind of maybe cash flow go down a little bit here, depreciation go up a little bit in this market. So that's how we analyze property. The way you analyze property, or the way you're analyzing property, is not wrong. So don't hear this from a veteran like me and think that you are going to miss out on, if you're not doing it like this, which most people don't do it like this. This is a calculator we literally built from scratch over years. It took us years to build this. Before 2010, we had no calculator. We only even really started building a calculator because one of our clients, Udi from Israel, wanted to know the yield on his property. He called it yield. Really what it was return on investment. He was from Israel and he was paying cash, and he needed to know what that return on investment was going to be for him. And he just made a simple calculator of, total purchase price plus closing costs, and then minus property management expenses, leasing fees. He had a little amount budgeted for repairs. He didn't have a mortgage, but he had property taxes, and he wasn't going to get insurance, believe it or not. He was a wild man. He was a risky dude. But he also lived, with rockets going off his whole life. So I guess it's really perspective. Anyway, he taught us how to analyze property. We were working for him, but he really taught us how to analyze property. Before that, we didn't. We just kind of, I think it'll work, kind of like that. And the thing is, when you work with a real estate professional that specializes in rental property investing, they're going to guide you, and they're going to be somewhere on that spectrum too, because they're going to be like, yeah, that'll work, versus we're a lot more process oriented and calculation driven and finance focused with spreadsheets that help validate what we're saying. There's going to be some brokerages like us, and there's going to be some brokerages or agents that don't work like that. But none of it's wrong. It's just a different way. And you get to discern what that way is. I personally didn't even start using any kind of calculations until after my third property that I bought. I was thinking about that before I recorded this. Just how many properties did it take me to even run any calculation? So there you have it. I mean, sometimes the key to getting ahead is getting started, and you just got to get going, and you got to make a commitment that you're going to just stick around and figure it out. And if you make those kind of commitments, you usually do. That's what I decided. I made a decision to get started, and I made a decision that this was going to be where I was going to stay, and I have stayed. So that is the basic idea of calculations and numbers and all that. And it's, of course, I put more value on running numbers than I did when I first began in 2006, buying my own properties, and I was helping clients do it in 2003. But the thing is, and I was just an assistant, so I didn't even know what I was doing anyway. But I just want to give you confidence to be like, as long as you just don't bet the farm and you have an idea, because a lot of this stuff is a pro forma anyway. It's not always right. You're making a spreadsheet. You're just estimating a lot of things. And when you estimate, that's a pro forma. Pro formas aren't always right. They're almost rarely actually 100% right. So you just do your best. That's all anybody can do. That's all the professionals can do. How do you know that? Look at history, read history, look at the Great Recession. Did anyone really see that coming? Yeah, there were a few people, but a lot of people didn't. That's how we got into that. Did anybody see COVID coming? No, not really. I mean, it was a global economic effect. And then the effects after COVID, and then the effects after COVID, which is where we're at now with hyperinflation. I know we're all feeling that. I know I am tremendously feeling it, and I know everyone's feeling that. That's a fact of that. Did anyone see that? Yeah, probably the chairman of the Fed. But for normal people like you and me, no, we didn't. We're just now reacting to it and just trying to figure it out and get by, right? That's the thing. Nobody really knows how this stuff's going to play out. Everything's a pro forma. So you do the best you can do, but then you just got to pull the trigger, and you got to make a commitment that no matter what happens, you're going to stand by yourself with the decision you made, because you made the best decision you could at the best time. Okay. Hope that helped. Have a great day. We'll see you later.